I'm Lauren with Pack Hacker, and in this video we're taking a detailed look at the Tom Bin Pilot, which I've been testing for the last 2 weeks. Let's dive in. This is designed to fit underneath the seat in front of you when you're flying on an airplane, hence the name, the Pilot. So they also have a co-pilot, which is a little bit smaller. This one is 13 liters. It has a 30% more capacity than the co-pilot. So if you're looking for something a little bit bigger, this is going to be a really great option, whether you're carrying devices or just like your everyday gear or whatever. This material itself on this bag, the sample that we have is the 420 Spectron. So it's a little bit lighter. They also have Cordura options, which is pretty typical for Tom Bin, and those are gonna be a little bit more structured. With this material, it's not like crunchy, like it doesn't sound crunchy like an X-Pack does, but it's more flexible for sure. So with this, you can see this pocket's really packed out and it's bulging out, whereas this one here, it's kind of caving in at the top because there's nothing up here to kind of like beef that out a little bit. So I don't think it impacts the aesthetic too much, honestly. If that's a huge deal, maybe something to keep in mind. But in terms of everything else on the bag here, we've just got a little Tom Bin logo down here at the bottom. And then on the back, we have a luggage pass-through. So this actually has a YKK self-locking zipper. So it's not going to open without you actually like lifting up the zipper pull and unzipping it this way. And when you unzip it, it opens this up so that this functions as a luggage pass-through. And then if you want to not use it as a luggage pass-through, you can close it. And it actually is a pocket that goes all the way down to the bottom. So the zipper like closes up that gap. So what's nice about that is if you have like larger items, if you have documents or anything really like flat, you can put in this pocket here. I largely ignored it because I didn't really have a need for it, but just kind of depends on your kind of day-to-day needs and what you're carrying for work. Otherwise, it just sort of hung out. It stayed pretty flush, but sometimes if the bag wasn't completely full, it would kind of jet out a little bit. More of like an aesthetic thing that I noticed than anything. It never really got in the way or anything like that. And then in terms of like hardware and things like that, we have YKK zippers all around, chunkier 10 and then slightly smaller 8. And then we have Duraflex and Woojin buckles for the strap system, which we'll talk about now. So there are largely two ways to carry this bag. You can either use the shoulder strap. So this is the one that comes included. It's a 1.5-inch nylon webbing strap. And then you can upgrade to the absolute shoulder strap if you want to. It just provides a little bit of extra padding. But I thought that this was enough. It's a little bit grippy on the bottom. Let me actually bring this up so you can see it. You can kind of tell that it's not like sticky, but it's just grippy, right? So when it's on your shoulder, it doesn't fall off or anything. It feels very secure, which I like. But I felt like this was enough, even when this bag was completely full and pretty heavy. I didn't really feel like it was like too much pressure on my shoulders or anything like that. It does make a squeaking noise, which I'll show you when I actually have the bag on. And that just got to be very annoying, to be quite honest with you, but it was more of an issue with the strap itself, it seems. So if you were to theoretically get a replacement for that, that should help. We also have the top carry handle here, which is made with a pour-on foam padding. It's maybe like an inch thick there, and it's very comfortable, and there's only one in the center, so you have a really balanced carry. I think this is something that was like a very underrated, or like a design feature that I didn't think I would like quite as much, because when you usually have top carry handles, there's always two, or there's often two, and there'll be like one at the front and one at the back or something like that. And when you accidentally grab it and you only grab one, it gets like really uneven. But in this case, because it's in the dead center, it was balanced every time I picked it up, and I wasn't like worried about accidentally only grabbing one strap and kind of making that feel weird. Here's the bag actually on one single shoulder. This is largely how I carried it. Like I mentioned, that padding or that like kind of that like grippiness underneath the padding helps a lot with keeping it from like falling off my shoulder. Like even if I bend down like this, right, it's staying on pretty well. So this was very comfortable. You can also wear it like this, knocked off the mic pack there. You can also carry it like this, and it feels very comfortable, but it's not like a huge deal, honestly, in either direction, however you carry it. And then there's this top carry handle where you can just like put it in briefcase mode basically by your side. The one thing that I mentioned with that squeak, if you go here, you can kind of hear it, right? It just got very loud and annoying, and it happened basically every time I was walking. So This seems to be more of an issue with just this particular sample, but if you have that same issue, maybe reach out to them and see if they're able to get you a replacement strap. If you're finding this video helpful, be sure to hit subscribe so we can keep making content to help you travel smarter. Looking at the external pockets and secondary pockets apart from the main compartment, we have 2 on either side and 1 in the middle. So this one in the middle, I'll look at really quick first. This is designed to fit like either a small water bottle or a umbrella. This is a 19-inch or 19-ounce Owala, which I don't believe they make anymore, but this fits in there perfectly fine. I noticed that taller bottles kind of like had an issue fitting in here and then being able to actually like zip this up. So it's definitely designed for like shorter bottles, but it can accommodate wide bottles. So I'm gonna leave this here in a second, but you can see that there's like a mesh here, and that mesh will just slowly start to like pack out into these compartments. So if you want to bring a slightly like larger bottle and it's rounder, then you can fit that in here for sure, barring the, you know, kind of height of it. And then as well, if you wanted to put like even like an umbrella or something in here, that's an option, and there is a little eyelet down on the bottom. So it will like, the water will seep out of the bottom instead of getting like all pooled up in there. So that's good too for some extra drainage. With the pockets themselves, we have 2 options. We have one on the right, one on the left. With the one on the left here, I put just like a toiletry bag in here. So I did an overnight where I put basically like 2 pouches, like overnight like toiletry type things in these front pockets, and then all of my clothing in the main compartment, and that fit. But if you're flying and you're maybe gonna need to bring out your toiletries at TSA, then you can keep them pretty easily accessible in there. And that one was basically like the entire size of this compartment, so it was really convenient. And then on the inside here, we have just one like slip pocket, which is great for a Kindle. And then there are O-rings on 1 in each compartment. I use the O-ring to hold small items. So I use the O-ring to put on like a ghost whale pouch. And this holds my AirPods and my chapstick. And that's because there's not really like a smaller pocket. Actually, let me pull this out. There's not really like a super small pocket in here that I wasn't already using with something else. So in this case, you can see when this pocket is empty, it's just kind of like this big dump pocket, and it goes all the way down to the bottom. So if I stick like my headphones in there, they get kind of lost. And like if I were to put a couple of other small items in there, they could all just sort of like pile on top of each other. But there is a decent amount of space in here for larger items. You know, you get basically this entire depth is essentially what you get out of that front pocket. On the other side, I have a extra layer. So this is a little on the thinner side. If you have a thicker sweatshirt or something, it might not fit in here. But also if you have a more packable jacket, you'll probably be able to fit it in there with room to spare, because that filled up pretty much the whole compartment. And then what's left is 3 pen slots. I have 2 filled right now. And then they say there's 4 pen slots in this compartment, so I think they're referring to this pocket here. But this is where I put a minimalist wallet. I would say this is probably as big as you can get and still have it fit in there. But you could also use it for small accessories if you want, like the AirPods and chapstick that I mentioned earlier. But the pocket is so deep, they go all the way down there. They're kind of hard to like get your fingers all the way down there to grab things out from the bottom. And then, you know, again, the more you have in there, the more it's just going to stack on. So again, I think that these ghost whale pouches do a really good job for adding some organization. And you can do it, if you wanted to, you can put this key leash, which comes attached to this O-ring. You could put this key leash on the other side if you wanted to. I left it here. These are pretty standard for Tom Bin. My keys attached to it perfectly fine, and then they just kind of hang out down at the bottom of this compartment. So you do have a decent amount of organization between all of the pockets on the front here. Now heading into the main compartment. So that opens with a zipper on the very back end here. Opens up nice and easily. And then you can see on the inside, there's not like a ton of leftover space. And a lot of that's just because these compartments are full on the outside. So I actually refilled them with like the cubes and things. So one thing that I would say, like the biggest takeaway for this bag, is that all of these pockets have competing space with each other at some point. So like obviously you have independent depth here, but if I were to like kind of looking at it here, how much space is left, if I were to take out this extra layer and then maybe let's say It's completely empty in that pocket for the sake of the argument. You can see that there's like a little bit more space back here to work with now that that compartment is empty. So between that and between on the inside, when you look in here, this water bottle pocket just kind of, or the water bottle, depending on how big it is, like cutting into the space, you might need to move your gear around a little bit to find the configuration that makes the most sense. But like I said, I was able to do like an overnight packing everything that I needed. I didn't have my laptop, but I did fill it with this main compartment with like clothing or something. But if I was traveling, I would probably only have everything that I currently had in here while we've been unpacking it. I would probably only have these items, and it filled up perfectly fine with like a little bit of room to spare, right? So it just kind of depends. With this main compartment, I have on one side just a pouch with tech gear. You could also put the pouch, or you put your tech gear directly in there, but again, very deep pockets, so stuff could get a little bit jumbled in there. And then if you wanted to, there are O-rings directly above that pocket if you want to utilize those instead. I also have a keyboard in here, and that goes basically all the way up to the top. I find it very easy to get whatever I need in here and to like find a spot for it. So I think depending on the size of your gear, like you shouldn't really have an issue being like, oh, this pocket's like too big, too small. Like there's basically a size pocket for almost everything. And then what there's not, there's the O-rings to attach additional gear. There's also on the other side here, there are little tabs so that you can attach a Tom Bin cache if that's what you want, which is basically their laptop sleeve. This is designed to fit up to a 14-inch device. I have a 13-inch MacBook Pro in here, and I do have it in its own carry case. So the one thing I would for sure recommend with this is if you're going to be carrying a device to actually get a separate carrying case for it, because there's no dedicated sleeve, there's no false bottom here. This material, because it's a little bit thinner, obviously it's gonna feel like thinner than like the Cordura. But even the Cordura is not gonna have that laptop protection, that device protection. So whether or not you get the Cadet or the Cache, or you get, bring whatever like device protector you have from home, I would definitely recommend that if you're gonna be traveling with a device largely all of the time. However, given this, you can see when I have this in here, there's still a little bit of space to spare up at the top. So I'm not really worried about like even a little bit thicker of a laptop case taking up too much room. But when this is all empty, you can see there's a decent amount of space down at the bottom. So this is like how much fillable space you actually have. I would say like between all of the pockets here, there's pretty much a good spot for everything you have. It's just figuring out where that best spot is for whatever gear, whether it's like access points because you want to have certain items closer to you when you have it underneath the seat in front of you, or if you want to, maybe something doesn't fit in a pocket on the outside, you'd rather put your Kindle on the inside, something like that, right? You can kind of mix and match depending on what you already have at home in terms of gear. But there is a good amount of space in here where, if you don't really carry that many items with you and you don't need a huge backpack, then this is going to be kind of a more like fun option for a personal item that's not too big but not too small. So there you have it, the Tom Bin Pilot. Thanks for keeping it here at Pack Hacker, your guide to smarter travel, and we'll see you in the next one.